gun shops across Tennessee were frozen in place, locked out of sales by a so-called instant check system that buckled under its own bloated weight. How can one database glitch slam the brakes on a constitutional right across an entire state? In this video, we'll talk about the bureaucratic time bomb that just exploded in Tennessee, how it's tied to a growing nationwide trend, and why your state might be next. We'll break down the quiet war being waged against gun owners, not with jackboots or bans, but with login errors, duplicate checks, and digital choke points. We'll hear from real dealers watching their businesses bleed out, real buyers walking away empty-handed, and how states are quietly piling on more safety layers that do nothing but throttle the rights of the very people who follow the law. If you're wondering how millions of Americans can be blocked from buying guns overnight, the answer is simpler and more dangerous than you think. Tennessee's so-called instant check slammed the brakes on every lawful gun sale in the state for 3 solid days, and it wasn't a freak lightning strike. FlexCheck, a web portal run by the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, coughed up a bright red, "No guns for you" banner after the Bureau's outside vendor rolled out a planned system change. Dealers didn't break it. Customers certainly didn't break it. Bureaucrats tinkered with the software. The switchboard died, and every buyer in the volunteer state got stuffed in a holding pen with zero recourse. Local TV crews raced from shop to shop and found owners doing the same useless dance, apologizing to customers, refunding deposits, and staring at a dead monitor while the state tried to remember how to turn the lights back on. 3 days may not sound biblical to a politician who's never filled out a Form 4473, but it's an eternity when your livelihood depends on ringing that register. Philip Arrington down in Goodlettsville figures he's weathered 6 multi-day collapses just since New Year's, not counting the smaller hiccups that knock transactions offline long enough to scare off the impatient. Mark Nash in Johnson City says those mini crashes hit almost weekly now, and he's tired of watching customers storm out, vowing never to waste gas on another false instant check. Larger chain stores bleeding payroll and advertising money won't put precise numbers on camera, but every hour of downtime shreds thousands of dollars in inventory turnover the state will never replace. This meltdown happened because Tennessee insists on running 2 background checks at once. Washington's NICS system already does the heavy lifting: felonies, domestic violence restraining orders, mental health commitments, the works. Still, Nashville routes every single buyer through its own Tennessee instant check system as well, allegedly to speed things up. That's political doublespeak. All the state check really adds is another single point of failure, and we just found out how fragile that point is. Up in Missouri, the clerk hits nix, the approval pings back, and the sale proceeds. In Tennessee, you can watch an all clear from the FBI pop onto the screen while the state side sits there in cardiac arrest, snarling every lawful purchase in spite of federal clearance. The insult isn't just technical, it's political hypocrisy. Tennessee parades around as a red-blooded, liberty-loving refuge for gun owners. Yet the same legislature that brags about constitutional carry bankrolls a redundant database that can flick the off switch on the Second Amendment whenever a vendor botches a software patch. Gun rights supporters notice. They remember speeches about freedom, then remember standing in line with a stack of greenbacks while the government's browser window mocked them. Meanwhile, a press flack at TBI smirks that the system was up 99.46% of the time last year, conveniently ignoring that 2025 is barely halfway through, and already peppered with outages that dwarf their neat little statistic. That uptime claim also ignores collateral damage. When FlexCheck crashed, it yanked some law enforcement terminals off the National Crime Information Center. Deputies trying to track fugitives or enter missing child data couldn't reach the database, proving the state's extra layer doesn't just squeeze civilian rights, it undermines public safety. If Tennessee were the lone offender, we could chalk it up to local incompetence. It isn't. 15 states now operate as full points of contact, intercepting every firearm transfer so they can rerun exactly the same data the FBI already holds. The usual suspects, California, New York, Oregon, make the list, but so do Florida, Utah, and Pennsylvania. Anti-gunners spin that roster as normal, claiming even conservative strongholds agree on doubling the checks. What they won't admit is that every duplicate database is another choke point waiting to suffocate your rights the moment a server farm trips over its own code. Washington state serves as the cautionary tale. Last November, a cyber breach took down the court system network, and because Washington routes its background checks through that same network, 10-day waits exploded into multi-week nightmares. The State Patrol, which normally clears up to 1,000 checks a day, processed zero. Thousands of rifles, pistols, and shotguns sat behind counters while headlines screamed about system safety. Buyers bailed out, refunded layaways, or just gave up. By the time administrators whispered that partial service was back, the backlog looked like rush hour traffic with every lane closed. Backlogs matter. Tennessee's 3-day shutdown generated a mountain of pending transactions that didn't vanish once FlexCheck whirred back to life. They all had to be processed in order, creating slow-motion pain for weeks. Now imagine that logjam multiplied across every POC state at once. All it takes is one poorly tested software patch or one hacker poking the wrong port, and half the country's gun counters lock shut overnight. The economic fallout is savage. Firearms retail runs on razor-thin margins and product cycles tied to hunting seasons, holiday gifting, and manufacturer launch dates. A turkey hunter who can't pick up a scattergun before opening morning doesn't circle back next week. He spends the money on something else. A woman looking for her first carry pistol won't drag herself through bureaucratic purgatory twice. She'll grab pepper spray and move on. Those lost sales hollow out local shops, slash jobs, and slowly erode the gun culture lawmakers claim to respect. And make no mistake, culture is the target. An outage this dramatic terrifies first-time buyers, the very people anti-gunners most want to discourage. Veterans and lifelong shooters may shrug and wait it out, but new folks see barriers and conclude the hobby just isn't worth the hassle. Politicians can't pass an outright ban, so they let glitches do the dirty work. Flip a switch, claim technical difficulties, and watch compliance skyrocket as frustration breaks the spirit of would-be owners. Here's the part that should have every freedom lover's hair on fire. Rights now ride on uptime percentages. Flip that around. If the power elite can snuff out a constitutional freedom by crashing a server, then the right isn't protected at all. It's a licensed privilege dangling from a fiber optic cable. That knowledge ought to compel action, and action starts locally. County commissioners write the checks that keep these state portals running. They can also yank funding or demand contractual penalties for downtime. Sheriffs can publicly announce alternate procedures, paper checks, sworn affidavits, or permit-based exemptions whenever the system goes dark. Those solutions cost money, but that cost belongs on the agency that created the bottleneck, not on the citizen at the counter. Permit holders deserve special attention here. In most of these POC states, a concealed carry permit already exempts the holder from another NICS inquiry, meaning the state trusts the FBI's records when it issues the plastic card. Yet Tennessee still runs FlexCheck, even on valid permittees. That's bureaucratic hoarding. Once the state builds a database, it refuses to let go. A simple legislative tweak saying a current permit equals an automatic go-ahead would carve thousands out of the queue every month, relieve pressure on servers, and, crucially, guarantee that people who passed a fingerprint-based deep dive last year don't get punished when vendor software explodes. Opponents squeal that any rollback lets criminals waltz through. Nonsense. ATF denial statistics show most rejects are paperwork typos or delayed prosecutions, not hardened felons grabbing AR-15s at lunchtime. Real criminals already buy off the street or steal from cars. All FlexCheck and its clones do is sandbag the guy who wants a new turkey gun for next week's trip, or the single mom who finally saved up for a reliable carry piece. Remember Washington's 2-week train wreck? Dealers had to rerun expired checks at fresh fees, essentially taxing people for the privilege of waiting. Tennessee will replay that fiasco if lawmakers don't force the Bureau to eat the cost of its own failures. Imagine a statute that slaps a $50 credit onto every sale delayed more than 48 hours by agency downtime. Watch how fast management finds redundancy servers then. Money talks. Bureaucracy listens when its budget screams. Until those reforms pass, everyday shooters need a battle plan. First, buy early. If a holiday or hunting season looms, get your purchase rolling long before the rush. Second, stay in the informational loop. Sign up for your dealer's text blast, follow state gun rights orgs, and keep an eye on local news feeds. Third, document everything. Print the error page, Note the date and take phone camera footage of the frozen screen. That evidence carries weight when you testify to the committee grilling the bureau director next session. Some claim these outages prove we need a universal federal database, bigger and more reliable. That cure is worse than the disease. Centralizing control means one breach, one patch error, or one political tantrum locks out the entire nation, not just a handful of states. Diversity of systems creates friction for tyrants. The right answer is leaner databases, not fatter ones. Strip redundancy, purge outdated records, and keep government layers minimal so failures affect as few people as possible. The bigger issue here is cultural resilience. Every time a server crash pauses gun sales, media pundits celebrate, quietly. They understand that momentum is everything. Interrupt purchases long enough, and the casual buyer walks away. That kind of soft suppression demands a hard response. Gun owners must never normalize downtime. The only appropriate reaction is outrage, loud enough to shake campaign war chests. Don't wait 3 weeks. Call your representative the moment the system goes down. Show up at the town hall. Demand service-level agreements written into state contracts. Politicians are betting that gun voters forget. Prove them wrong. Florida, Utah, Pennsylvania. Your systems are just as vulnerable. Don't wait for them to fail. If a lawmaker is waving a pro-Second Amendment flag at a rally while quietly funding redundant background checks behind closed doors, call out the hypocrisy. Don't listen to what they say. Watch what they do isn't just a catchy line. It's how you survive politically. Bottom line, a constitutional right that depends on a buggy login page isn't a right. It's a bureaucratic illusion. And the people behind it know that software failures are a loophole they can exploit. Tennessee pulled that stunt this week. Washington did it last fall. How many warnings do free citizens need? The fix is simple. Eliminate redundant background checks. Require real failover infrastructure. Hold agencies accountable for outages. And ensure that carry permits function as true NX exemptions. The alternative is death by delay, each outage longer than the last, slowly eroding public trust until gun ownership feels more like a DMV errand than a fundamental freedom. That future can still be avoided, but only if gun owners act like citizens, not subjects, loud, involved, and absolutely unwilling to let a server crash silence the Second Amendment ever again. And that wraps up this video. Tennessee's crash showed just how fragile gun rights can be, even in states that claim to back the Second Amendment. From digital delays to political misdirection, they're building backdoor restrictions without passing a single law. So what do? Should states refund buyers when systems go down? Should carry permit holders bypass state portals altogether? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit like, share this video, subscribe, and ring the bell, because what they try to bury next, we'll be here to expose.